Okay. So, San Antonio in 1969, there was a contraceptive study conducted on 70 poor Hispanic women, where half were given oral contraceptives and the other half placebo without consent. So, this answers my question to this.
Start with I'd be a, and so I was going to tell you what my qualifications are. Um, First, I guess I'd start with I'd be a murderer. I was involved in abortions when I was younger. Start with I'd be a murderer. I was involved in abortions when I was younger. Uh,
Okay, I mean, really, when he was younger, he doesn't have any medical behind him in order to be doing any kind of abortions. Something's going on there. I think it's a good question. I mean, this to me is MK Ultra, you know, a part of that program.
Dissociative state is used as an opening to hypnotically induce an alternate shell personality. The programmer will use hypnosis and triggers to call forth the created personality, known as an alter personality. Only 20% of the general population is easily hypnotizable, but trauma at an early age makes people vulnerable to dissociation and thus easily hypnotizable. Typically, the programmer might wear a costume, such as a rabbit suit, and sacrifice a rabbit in front of the child victims before they are physically traumatized. The image of the rabbit, a phrase from Alice in Wonderland, or similar paired images are used as the triggers to call forth the alter personality. The method works best when the trauma is repeated around 6 years of age. A few years later, the child victim's IQ test and personality test are evaluated to determine whether the child may be trained in assassination, sexual blackmail, drug courier, or other role. The subject can be hypnotized and used for operations, but would only be
Okay. At the end of World War II, many German psychiatrists, medical doctors, scientists were brought to the US through secret channels without State Department approval, much akin to the Underground Railroad, that the Catholic Church that allowed this evil in, that opened the door to evil, which is evil itself, provided to Nazi war criminals. The United States government brought Nazi researchers to the United States to continue their work after losing ground to the Germans, afraid of losing ground to the Germans in many scientific disciplines. These academic war criminals were allowed to escape the Nuremberg trials in favor of academic positions in the United States. Their entry into the United States were facilitated through two OSS operations called Project Paperclip and Project 63. Over 1,000 researchers were allowed to enter into the United States through these projects. Many of them were physicians guilty of mind control experiments at concentration camps such as Dachau, which the effects of the mescaline and other mind altering drugs were tested on prisoners. Okay. One such physician was Dr. Kurt Plantner, and another Nazi transplant, Dr. Yes Herbertus Stronghold, went on to become the director of the United States Air Force School, okay, of flying medicine at Rudolph AFB in San Antonio, Texas. Others close to Stronghold were tried at the Nuremberg trials. However, he amazingly avoided accusation and interrogation and has a library dedicated to him at Rudolph Brooks at AFB in Texas. Ironically, all of the Armed Forces research on direct energy weapons also, oh, where is that? What does that say? All, weapons is also done at Brooks City Base, situated on the southeast side of San Antonio, Texas. Again, ironically, all the Armed Forces research on direct energy weapons is also done at the Brooks City Base situated on the southeast side of San Antonio, Texas. Undoubtedly, many of the doctors who began mind control research in Germany were allowed to continue the research in the United States. The OSS became the CIA, and the horrors of Dachau became the government-funded projects, which are under the code name MK Ultra, MK Search, Artichoke, and Bluebird. Similar to the concentration camp victims in Nazi Germany, the American public will become the unwilling guinea pigs of most of these government-funded abuses of human rights. Despite extensive shredding of documents at the order of the CIA Director Richard Helms, many previously classified documents pertaining to these mind control experiments were released through the Freedom of the Information Act. The description of certain subjects of MKUltra in the chapter are based on the documents released by the government. Okay. By the government. Okay. Released by our government and not conjecture on the part of the author. While many of the documents were heavily reacted, definitely can be made to the complainants of continuing mind control experimentation. Today, out of 149 sub-projects of MKUltra, we will briefly go into the ones that have some bearing on the continued experimentation that exists today. Many believe that the MKUltra is currently ongoing under a different code name with documentation still unreleased. Okay. MKUltra was created by the CIA in 1953 and continued according to the documents until 1972 under the code name MK Search.
Philadelphia, they are literally using sonic weapons against teenagers to try to get them to disperse from public parks. The mosquito, invented in the UK back in 2005, is described by the product's Canada's-based North American distributor as a small speaker that produces a high-frequency sound, much like a buzzing of the insect. This high frequency can be heard by young people, 13 to 25 years old, and it reaches as far as 130 feet, depending on the set volume. Hearing deteriorates with age, and so older people cannot hear the high frequencies emitted by the $5,000 devices, which Philadelphia has been deploying since 2014, and is now in 31 locations to prevent loitering and vandalism. So this has been going on for quite some time, guys. Michael Gibson, the CEO of distributor Moving Sound Technologies, told NPR that the intention was just to move non-confrontationally youth from an area where they shouldn't be, and that will prevent vandalism and it'll prevent graffiti and loitering. City officials have deemed the technology to be safe, but it has raised safety concerns overseas. A health regulator in Germany reported that although the risks to teenagers are relatively low, for smaller children, there is a risk from lengthy exposure with adults unable to hear and move away. The onset of dizziness, headaches, nausea, and impairment is to be expected. Of course, if you're not even aware that this is going on because you can't hear it, you're probably going to be affected in a way that you don't know or don't understand. And this is exactly what's happening to people. And over there in Europe, they're starting to realize it. In 2010, the Council of Europe went further, demanding a ban on the devices, which inflict acoustic pain on young people and treat them as unwanted birds or pests. The body described the technology as a harmful, highly offensive health hazard that is neither politically acceptable nor consistent with the safeguards of fundamental human rights. Legislative measures should be taken throughout Europe against the marketing of such devices, and their use in public places should be banned. So they're very serious about this over there in Europe, and they continue to try to block it, but in Philadelphia, that is not the case. According to the city's Action News, the devices are installed at the request of the community, a district council member, or in one case, the police. Some also link to surveillance cameras, here we go, to catch vandalism or other groups gathering late at night causing a disturbance. CCTV security cameras are currently installed at more than 60% of parks and rec facilities, with plans for cameras to be installed across all sites with this system. Now, Philadelphia Councilwoman Helen Jim told NPR that in a city that's trying to address gun violence and safe spaces for young people, how dare we come up with ideas that are funded by taxpayer dollars that turn young people away from the very places that were created for them? And here's the important part. Jim, who described the mosquito as a sonic weapon, told NPR, "I don't think that this project is going any further until it meets with the full scrutiny of the public, that we have serious attention paid to whether this is the best use of our money." Now, those are strong words, calling this a sonic weapon. So let's take a look at whether or not that is called for or not. The definition of a sonic weapon, according to Wikipedia anyways, sonic and ultra weapons are weapons of various types that use sound to injure, incapacitate, or kill an opponent. So beaming a high-frequency pitch into a teenager's ear to annoy them, I would say, is incapacitating them. So this is indeed a sonic weapon. And what that amounts to is something that the military refers to as DEWs, or direct energy weapons. There's all sorts of these things. We have microwave weapons, laser weapons, plasma weapons, things of that nature, particle beam weapons, sonic weapons, like the long-range acoustical device, which we've talked about many times here. But here's where things get interesting. You see here, it says non-lethal weapons. The Telecom Technology Symposium 97 concluded on non-lethal weapons, determining the target's effect on personnel is the greatest challenge to the testing community, primarily because the potential of injury and death severely limits human tests. Also, directed energy weapons that target the central nervous system and cause neurophysiological disorders may violate certain conventional weapons convention of 1980. Here we go. Weapons that go beyond non-lethal intentions and cause superfluous injury or unnecessary suffering may also violate the protocol to the Geneva Conventions of 1977. I would suggest that buzzing a frequency into teenagers' ears because you are annoyed that they're keeping you up at night is unnecessary suffering. So it seems they are indeed going against the Geneva Conventions. And like I said, this is like a military use application on teenagers because they're keeping you up at night. Absolutely ridiculous. Something we need to
Okay, there you go.